Hi everyone and welcome back to Art Club with Ali. So this week we are focusing on the nose. So for the next few weeks we're going to focus on some key parts of the face to help develop our drawing skills. So we're starting off with the nose, which I think is one of the most difficult things to draw. That's because it's got so many lights and shadows that make it look real. There is no real defined lines like with the lips or the eyes. So for this tutorial, we're going to be using colored crayons. So you should be able to easily find these resources at home and be able to join in and have a lot of fun. Now, like always, take your time, pause, and always go back if you miss something. This is all about you doing it at your speed. So this video consists of the first tutorial, which is the front-facing nose, which is more in-depth, and then 2 mini videos of a profile and from underneath. They're all using the same skills demonstrated in the first tutorial. So have fun, enjoy, and I can't wait to see what you do.
So the first nose we're going to look at is a straight-on front-facing nose. So the first thing I'm going to do is start looking at the initial shapes of the nose. So I'm highlighting the outside shape, which is sort of a diamond. Now we're looking at where the nose points up, and I'm circling the highest point of our nose, the tip. Here I'm showing some indicators for the nostrils, and then outlining the center bridge of our nose. So that's the top point, right at the peak of where our nose goes up. So now what I'm going to do is start copying this shape that I've made all these guidelines onto my paper. So I'm starting with that initial outside shape. And exactly in the same order, I'm putting those lines in. So we've got the nostrils, where the nose goes up into our point, our circle to show our highest point of our nose, and then our bridge of our nose, the center part, where all the sides meet. So now all I'm doing is refining some shapes. So I've drawn that line to show where the underneath of my nose is and the nostrils end. And now I'm starting to put the nostrils in and I'm looking back and forth at the different shapes. And I'm curving some of my lines and making them look more natural. So I'm going to give you time now. Just have a look, keep making those small adjustments, getting those basic shapes right. Adding a little bit of shadow here and there. And getting your basic lines. So here we're just putting the side lines on the outside of our nose to help us build up the idea of that shape. Okay, so now I've got my palette out and I've selected a tool that looks a lot like a crayon. So this is something that you should hopefully have some colored crayons. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start building up the shape of the nose. So I'm going to rub out all the guidelines I don't need and make some of them just faint, like the bridge lines and the tip of our nose, so I can see where I'm going to put my lightest points, like in my image. So now I'm just building up that base color. So it's not the darkest color, but it's not the lightest. It's the one that sits right in between. So we're going to go for the lightest side first, and we're just slowly building up those textures. Now what I'm doing to make sure that I don't get those really obvious lines is that I'm going in different directions. That's going to build up that tone and texture without those really obvious lines. Now I'm going in and pressing a bit harder. This is because, as we can see on this right side of the shape, the part of the nose in between the face and cheek and the very tip of the nose, the lightest point, is slightly darker in colour. So now we've moved over to the left side and we're putting a faint base down because we're going to start building up that really much deeper tone. So first I'm looking at the shadows near the cheek and the edge of the nose. And I'm starting to round off at the tip of the nose, because by shading, following the curves of the shape, we create that much more 3D look than just doing straight lines down. So if you saw then with the nostril, I was going at a slight angle. And now I'm just adding some colour to the outside of the face, just to give that 3D impression. So right now yours should look a bit similar to mine. So now what I'm doing is I'm going in with a slightly different colour slightly darker, and we're starting to build up that side of the face on the right that is a slightly different texture, and we're slowly building up those slightly deeper redder tones. So as you can see, I'm going close to the middle on the left side, right where the light, the center line, starts to look a bit reddish. So you can see, if you look at the middle of the nose, you get the white line where all the light is, and then there's sort of a red orangey line that's going all the way down the center of the nose. So now we're just looking at where those reddish shadows hit. So on the edges of the nostril, this is what's going to start to really define our shapes. So getting a 3D texture right on a colored drawing is all about using those different colors. Our faces have a lot of different colors in them. There's blues and greens because of the blood underneath our skin, and there's yellows and reds and whites from the different lights that we're in and the things that are reflecting off of us. So now what I'm doing is I'm starting to build up those lighter parts. So as you can see, I left a space on the right nostril to really build up that light and let that lighter color really show through. So now I'm just looking at those different parts in my picture that have those pinkier, lighter colors, and I'm really starting to shade that in. Again, this is what's going to build our dimension and make it look more 3D. So I'm going back in now with that middle tone color, and I'm starting to really define my shapes where the lights start to get broken up by those different tones. And so I've gone across the tip of the nose because there is a slight area just above that really bright point, and the bridge where it's kind of broken by a darker line of light. So this part is all about looking at those colors and using your best judgment and swapping between all your different colored crayons. And just keep swapping. Get as many of those colors that match that face as possible, the darkest, the lightest, and just keep swapping them. So now we're going in with an even darker brown. So we're really starting to carve those shadows out. And as you can see, the nose is starting to look more like it's coming out of the page to a point. So using that darker brown, we've gone back to focusing on the nostrils. So our nostrils are quite interesting when we look at the shadow. They're generally not just a black dot. They start off with a degrading of light. That means that basically the light is getting darker like a shadow, but it concentrates that very black point in the very middle at the edge. So you can see almost a gradient of darkness. So we've kind of got a light brown and then it goes into a black. Okay, so now it's just a case of really starting to build up those colors and get those depths of light and dark and those different shades in. So we're adding those reds and we're starting to really deepen the shadows, especially in those deeper recesses where there's going to be a lot less light. So we're just focusing on those darker shadows underneath the nose to the left side of the face, where it is a lot darker. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a really, really light colour and I'm starting to hit those really bright pops of light where the light is hitting the nose the most. So the very tip, a very thin line on the bridge, and then there are some splashes of light. Again, this is what's going to make those colours really pop. Okay, so now we're going to just focus in on those nostrils and getting that really dark depth and dimension. So the first thing I'm going to do is on the very edge, I'm going to go in with an even darker shade. Because like I said, the shadows in your nostrils are a gradient, so they're not just completely black. We can see that kind of softer, skin-toned, darker brown shadow. And now we're just adding little hits of light on the edges of the nostrils. That's what's really going to make it three-dimensional. So now I'm just adding some finishing touches off, going off the picture, looking back and forth. And there we have it. That is our front-facing nose. So have a look at mine, have a look at yours, make those last-minute adjustments, and well done. Okay, so next we're going to do a super quick look at profile nose. So I'm following those same steps as before. I'm doing the outlines, getting those shapes, and then I'm copying it in a skin coloured tone. And now I'm really building up that shape. We're making sure we're getting those softer edges and really defining that realistic look. Now I've added a bit of a lip just to get that full view of that face. So now I'm just building in those red tone shadows. So around the nostril, underneath the nose, and we're going to slowly build up our different tones. So now we're going in with a softer pink, and we're really looking at that underneath. That's what's going to give it that 3D dimension. So we're adding in some extra parts of the face, just to get that full depth of that drawing. And again, a lot of drawing is about building those shapes up, getting those angles and those hits of light. So we're going in with the darker shadows now. Again, slowly building up. We're looking at the tip of the nose, how that swoops up. And there is a lot of different tones to the face. As you can see, I'm using brown, pink, creams, and other colours. And then we're really going in just to add to that depth. So just keep looking back and forth. So now I'm going in with an even darker colour, and I'm starting to really define the boundary between the nose and the flat part of the face where the cheek is, so the nose meets the face. And there you have it, our profile nose, super quick study. Okay, so the last quick study we're going to look at is a nose from slightly underneath. So again, we're using those same skills as before, getting those initial structures, highlighting the high point of the nose, and then we're going to go in and copy that. Again, we're trying to use tones that match the skin tone of our subject. So I'm just building those shapes, and as you can see, I'm being a little bit more careful and a little less angular and getting more of those natural shapes from the beginning. So now I'm just working on the nostril, just building those shapes up, and now we can start adding colour. So we'll start from the underneath where it is going to be slightly more shaded, and then we're just going to fill in those outside areas of the nose, the cheeks, the face, the underneath, the top of the lip. So now we can start to go in with a slightly different colour, slightly darker, and really start to define those boundaries. So if you look, I'm concentrating on the shadows at the moment because we can go in with those lighter colours. That's what's really going to build up that 3D shape. Again, I can't stress it enough, it's all about shadows. Now, just to give it a bit more reality, I've just popped those nostrils in, and that's just going to really help me understand the shape of the nose a bit better before I start building up the rest of the colours. So now we're adding some red tones in, and again, I'm looking back and forth at all the different colours. And we'll finish off with those pops of light. So we're adding some even more red tones. They're very subtle, but they are in there. You've got to look for those subtle details. And again, there are pinks, and now we're adding some highlights. That's again going to give it that 3D depth and dimension that's going to make it look real and not flat on the page. And there we have it. That is our nose from underneath. So I hope you've enjoyed and you've learned a lot. Again, as you're watching this, go back through, pause the videos, and just enjoy yourself. And remember, just keep looking back and forth. Don't draw what you think is there, draw what you see. So again, we're just adding those finishing touches, making that really pop. So that last bit with the nostrils is what's really brought it to life. And I hope you've enjoyed. Well done.
Okay guys, so that was project 2 complete. I hope you are now master nose drawers, whatever that means. And you join next week when we start looking at the lips. I'm really excited to be bringing these tutorials to you, and I hope you're having a lot of fun. And bye from Art Club with Ali. See you next time.